Hey, folks, it's Myron from the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. Today, I am joined by the cleanest player in the game, Mopboy himself. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing great. I am having a squeaky clean morning so far, and I'm looking forward to the day ahead. I am the Mopboy. I am the cleanest player in the game, as you said, and I hope you know that I never work dirty, my friend.
Yes, it's good to see somebody committed to clean work. You know, you get too many of these guys. I've seen the dirtiest player in the game. Now I've seen the cleanest player in the game. That's pretty awesome.
And that's the thing, like people, love to take shortcuts in life, but whether it's pro wrestling or mopping the floor, it's very simple. Anybody can learn how to mop a floor, but it is impossible to master.
Yes, I have seen some of your masterwork. You were cleaning Vince Russo's computer.
Yes, and that computer, what he was looking at was absolutely filthy. I was trying to do him a favor. I understand he was upset, but, it needed to be done, Like, my mop might have been dirty, but it was not as dirty as what's on that screen. Let me tell you what, Myron.
Oh, that Vince. So, you are working for Rocky Mountain Pro.
Yes, sir. I am our resident custodian for Rocky Mountain Pro. I keep the quarry clean, and I keep every show clean all over the state of Colorado that we take Rocky Mountain Pro to.
Y'all are blowing up, man. Y'all have got TV now?
Yes, we just got TV. Yesterday we aired the third episode of our first season of RMP Charged.
Oh, cool. That's great, because y'all's promotion has always been top notch. I've watched you on the Fight Network. I watched the first couple seasons, first 3 seasons I've seen on the Fight Network. And
yes.
That was good stuff. Your production at Rocky Mountain Pro is some of the best stuff you're going to see outside of the WWE.
Most definitely. There are many indie promotions out there, but, we're trying to be, not just an indie promotion, we truly try to say this is the bar to what makes you professional, I don't believe at all right now there's no other promotion in the state of Colorado who is doing a televised promotion. So not only are we the bar, we are the standard. So we got to, put out the best quality product we can.
That's excellent. That is totally excellent. And keeping it clean is bound to be handy to have you around.
Most definitely. I mean, like, hey, when you got a lot of guys sweating on the same ring, there are a lot of risks. You can get a staph infection. I try to keep it clean so no one gets sick because, nobody wants to see some sick wrestling unless it's sick in the, how you say, the slang term sick.
Yes. Now, you're doing something special out there. You are doing Twitch work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great Twitch channel going on from Rocky Mountain Pro. What do you do on the channel?
Well, I run a show called RMP2K. And with that hashtag, you can be part of our show, too. Just type it in-game. If you're playing on Xbox One, currently we are only on Xbox One. But usually we start each episode for about the first 45 minutes, an hour. We take a character from Rocky Mountain Pro. We morph their face, an actual picture of their face, onto the character. We add tattoos. We try to make their attire look good. So we're kind of trying to immortalize these characters. It's not just WWE 2K. These are like the official creative wrestlers of our promotion, and we're using this game to do it. And then for the second half of the show, I actually have set up a universe mode, so the game automatically builds a card, and you get to watch storylines play out with our characters digitally. And so since it's an interactive show, you can upload your characters too. We try and kind of break the fourth wall, and you can be part of our promotion too, and you can test your luck against, the true wrestlers of Rocky Mountain Pro.
And y'all got a lot of great stars out there, man. And I know a lot of them are comic book and video game guys, and there's great amount of video game content on this Twitch channel.
Oh, yeah, pro wrestling and video games, they're kind of hand in hand. I still remember, when I was a kid, what got me into pro wrestling was WrestleMania 2000 on the Nintendo 64. I saw that, and I was almost obsessed with that as I am with keeping the floor clean.
You played a lot of video games growing up as a young Mopboy.
Yes, I did. They helped raise me.
I've been a big gamer myself, and my favorite were the the SmackDown series on PlayStation?
Oh yeah, the SmackDown games were great. I never actually had a PS2 until I was probably in my early 20s. So long after it was in its prime. But the SmackDown games were definitely the best of that generation. The original Xbox, because I am an Xbox guy, none of those like video games that came out for the Xbox were really that great of wrestling games. Raw 2 kind of capitalized on Raw 1, but it had like the wonky gameplay. WrestleMania 21, I think it was 21 or 22. That one had really bad gameplay but decent storytelling. It wasn't really till the Xbox 360 where SmackDown versus Raw cut off the console line, and it really brought good wrestling to the Xbox platform.
Yeah.
But if you had to ask me personally, the best wrestling game of all time, I would have to say it's WrestleMania No Mercy, or not WrestleMania, WWF No Mercy, just because, it's a game that still has aged well. It plays just as fun as it did, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I've been trying to catch that magic back with 2K15 and 2K18 on PC, but for some reason on PC, they're just not the same.
It's interesting. I couldn't imagine actually playing that sort of game with a mouse and keyboard. The thing that made wrestling games great back in the day is that they had more of an arcade feel. And now 2K, they're trying to make it more of like a simulator, which is, great in its own ways. At the same time, it can also kind of be destructive to the business in a sense, if you ask my opinion. But I love how realistic it feels. It's not exactly like working a match, but it has a lot of the same elements.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to look at it. I've never heard anyone say that. And I would believe, as someone who's never been in the ring, that it would be closer to a simulator. And that's probably why I'm not catching it. Now, I play with a controller, but still, it just does not seem the same as the old console game.
Most definitely. I think that's kind of a thing in gaming altogether that the industry's kind of lost. Don't get me wrong. I love online gaming. I am a competitive guy. I want to clean the floor better than you. I want to mop the floor with you if we're playing Street Fighter or any game I like. And, you don't see too many split-screen games anymore. It's cool to play something side by side with a friend. That's something that kind of our industry is missing now.
I agree 100% on those games. That is one of the most fun things I did as a child, was have a buddy over and we sat down and we played Contra, or we played baseball game. That was so great.
It's sad that we don't have arcades like we did when I was a child. You could go there, you wait in line, and you try and beat the guy winning a Street Fighter or Tekken or Mortal Kombat. Now you don't kind of have that I'm going for low man, because you just wait for the next match, and you could be waiting a minute, you could be waiting 10 minutes trying to find an opponent just to play online.
Your quarters out there and say, I got winner. I call winner.
Yeah.
Play through the line, man. That was fun. I remember those days. Arcades were awesome. We would drive to the mall, or get my mother to drive me to the mall and just go straight to the arcade and hang out the whole time.
Exactly. It was a fun experience, and it's a shame that we don't, the kids of tomorrow don't get the same experiences, I look back on the things that made my childhood awesome. You look at Blockbuster, you look at Toys R Us, those places are closing down now. Those places are closed. Well, Blockbuster's already gone. We don't have arcades like we used to. Yeah, you can go to Dave & Buster's, but those games just don't draw people like, sitting down and playing the real games you could in an arcade back then. Back then, you went to the arcade to see mind-blowing graphics, and now you have all that power in your console at home.
It's one of those things. I think the kids will probably say the same thing about something they're doing now when their kids don't know about it, but I really appreciated that time. I really appreciated that time.
Definitely. They definitely need to bring that back. I definitely think, VR gaming, virtual reality is kind of a trend right now, and it's a very expensive trend. So, arcades, I think, really need to, bring the virtual reality experience there at an affordable price. And then, if people can go there to do VR, then people don't have to spend, thousands of dollars just to try, remodel their living room to play some sort of game in a augmented state.
I agree 100% with that. Now, when you play WWE 2K18, do you play as yourself, preferably, or do you play as a character, or do you play with other Rocky Mountain guys?
I mean, when I'm playing matches with other characters, on the card, I'll pick whichever character I deem fit, but usually if I'm in the match, of course I'm going to play with my character. I took my time to put my tattoos on it. I took that time to make that character look like me. As far as I'm concerned, that it's just an extension of me. But, don't make it weird just because I'm playing with myself, because it's only digitally.
Well, I mean, you're a wrestler. You believe in yourself. It makes sense that you would go out there and play as your wrestling character.
Most definitely. I'm not going to play as Anthony Katina if, he's wrestling against me. The Mopboy, he's cleaned up many bars. Katina, Cantina, it's all the same. I'd rather he be the one who get mopped.
You've got a real unique opportunity, I think, that no other promotion has in the same degree as y'all. You're a wrestler.
Oh, most definitely.
And you're an entertainer, both inside the ring and on Twitch.
It's definitely something unique. Like I said, I only started, learning to wrestle about, 2 years ago. I've been on shows for about a year. So, I mean, if you would have asked me 2 years ago that this is where I would be, I'd look at you and I would have given you the strangest look in the world. There's no way I would have believed all of this not only would be possible, but in this short of a time.
Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty good turnaround time, man, for somebody who only started 2 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, so I started in May of 2016. And I've been training at the Mercury Pro Wrestling Academy since about November of 2017. And I did my first show, I want to say June of 2017, and that was in a 10 vs. 1 match against Impact Wrestling's Congo Kong.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And I was the last man left in the match. Basically, he took me and the other guy, the Dread Captain Stevens. He chokeslammed both of us, gets up on the top rope. By the skin of my teeth, I rolled out of the ring. Coop gets eliminated. So I walk back in the ring, and I stare up at that guy, and I swear to God, that dude is 10 feet tall. And then before I could even react, he puts me down. He hits me with a power bomb. And all I hear after the power bomb in my dazed state was some drunk asshole in the crowd saying, "Do it again!" And I took a second power bomb from Congo Kong. And I felt like, I was an asteroid hitting the earth with how far I fell.
Wow. I can only imagine what getting dropped from that height. That guy is huge.
He's a big, big dude.
Ooh. Now, you've spoken of several wrestlers. Who did you watch when you were a young man?
Ooh, I mean, like, my earliest memory of watching pro wrestling on TV, I was probably, 3 years old, and I remember watching, Hulk Hogan in the NWO, terrorizing WCW. But growing up, I would say, honestly, one of my favorite wrestlers, as controversial as it is Chris Benoit. He was a small guy, but he was such a technically sound wrestler. He could wrestle a guy, who was 7 feet tall and make it, a believable match because you knew he could, kick some ass. Yeah, I loved him. Eddie Guerrero. I loved watching, John Cena when I was younger, especially back during his basic thugonomics era. I was a huge Booker T fan back in the 90s, early 2000s. Brock Lesnar back when he first started, that work really got me. And I also loved a lot of the early TNA work back, watching Alpha Male, Monty Brown, or even, AJ Styles younger in his career, Beer Money, all those tag teams too. There were, there was so much good wrestling back then, It's almost hard to watch, modern wrestling in a lot of ways because when you watch wrestling back in the day, and especially when you go back further watching, all the way back to the 70s, the 60s, wrestling when you watched it on TV, it always meant something, Now you watch wrestling and, it almost feels like, they try and have, these events so planned out, so far out that, it doesn't quite have that same meaning, Pro wrestling needs to be organic, pro wrestling, changes from week to week, And what makes wrestling real is, making it matter, because everything you do in that ring is supposed to matter, especially cleaning it, because, hey, you got to have a clean ring, right?
Oh, yeah. I've seen them have to, down here in Georgia, when they get real bloody, they have to take the canvas out and put it in their driveway and get a hose and mops and push brooms.
Yeah, you got to power wash it.
Yeah, man, the amount of blood and stains those mats get. Holy crap!
Yeah, about I would say 9 months ago, before I was working with Rocky Mountain Pro, I was refereeing a world class deathmatch tournament, and yeah, like, those guys, especially the ones who do take that level in the ring, like, that is paying some of the ultimate tolls to entertain people, I don't think you'll ever see Mopboy being a deathmatch wrestler, but I got to give respect to those guys, because if you're willing to do that, especially for the amount of money they're going to get paid for doing that on a local show, the mad respect to anyone who's willing to donate blood to entertain their fans.
I'm more along the school of thought that if you bleed, it should be something important in an important match,
Most definitely, and I agree, too, with that.
I think a lot of times people just get gratuitous in it, and that's like modern wrestling, in my opinion, is you've got matches that you watch for the quality of the match, not the story, and I think sometimes people throw blood and foreign objects into matches trying to reclaim some of that magic that people used to get. Because, you watch a match to see the match. Now, you don't watch the match because you feel or care about the people in the match.
Exactly, like, I definitely think, technical wrestling, having really good, well-built-up matches is very important, but at the same time, you got to have that story playing along, too, because without that story, what's the point? Like, that's why I feel like even, you watch UFC and you watch MMA nowadays, and, I just feel like the reason why, you're seeing a decline in the numbers in that industry is, you watch UFC from 10 years ago and you had the big name stars like Chuck Liddell's, your Tito Ortiz's, guys like that, and nowadays, the UFC is just like, you don't even know who half the guys on the roster are anymore, they're not, like, marketing that quite properly,
Got to have that build. You got Conor McGregor can't be the only one out there being the heel and going out and drawing all the heat.
Exactly. And I have respect for McGregor. He's one of the best fighters in the world, and I got to say, it took a real pair to step into a boxing ring against Floyd Mayweather. But, I can never really give, Floyd Mayweather that same respect until he fights, McGregor in a UFC, octagon. And, I saw they were trying to do something, but they have all these rules like, oh, there's no takedowns, there's no this, there's no that. It's like, what's the point of even getting in the octagon then, You got to fight him in a true MMA match. You're making all these exceptions. You're just making it a work at that point.
I agree. And when they focus so much on being real fighting, if they slip over into kayfabing stuff, it's just not going to work for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, look at, what happened when boxing did it back in the day. I mean, it kind of killed the industry, like, it's almost tough to believe that, like, are all these matches legit? It's tough to tell, It's easy to even question it in pro sports nowadays. Look at that Super Bowl that happened, 5 years ago, where it was the Ravens and the 49ers, and all of a sudden, the lights get cut out, and then all of a sudden the 49ers are making this miraculous comeback. I'm not claiming that I think it's a work, but I'm just saying, something like that happening in that nature at that time, it seemed a little suspicious,
Well, it's very, with me being such a huge wrestling fan and watching so much wrestling and talking to so many wrestlers, it's quick for me to assume something's a work. It's maybe a little too easy.
But hey, people might now think because I said that Mopboy, should have a tinfoil hat on his head with the conspiracies and stuff. So I'll try and keep it clean. I have respect to anyone playing a pro sport, contact, no contact, because hey, it takes a toll on your body. And, anyone who's willing to put those hours in the gym, put those hours into training, earns respect, And that's why it really bugs me when people say, oh, pro wrestling's not a sport, is because we're training just as hard as any other professional sport out there to not just entertain our fans, but compete to get the spots on these shows.
And that's the hard thing, is getting booked on some of these shows, man. Because there's a lot of talent.
There's so much talent out there nowadays. I agree.
Have you got to interact with more promotions through your time at Rocky Mountain Pro, or have you gotten out there?
Since I've been to Rocky Mountain Pro, I've just been working on, killing old bad habits I learned from the other people I trained with, learning the Rocky Mountain Pro style of wrestling. But before that, I worked with a promotion called Primo's in Denver and Colorado Springs Wrestling as well. And then there was one other promotion. I forgot what it was called because they went under after their first show. But I think it was called Loco Pro Wrestling or something. That was up in Longmont, Colorado. But I am looking, sometime in the future, once I get a little bit more stable ground, to take bookings out of state. But, right now I'm just trying to focus on, being the most sound wrestler I can while I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you get to learn from some great guys out there and some great wrestlers.
Most definitely. Matt Yaden, he's completely helped me change how I work in the ring. Guys like Anaya, Hoodie, they're very tough. They're tough trainers, they're hard to impress, but, you almost need that in the industry because, nothing is handed to you, nothing is given. One thing I really respect Hoodie, though, and what he says is that if you fight for your dreams will fight for you. So as long as you put that effort in, you're a lot more likely to get your goals.
That's a very good way to look at that. That's a very good way to look at that. I have never heard that before. It's a really solid thing, man.
And, when you start, in the beginning days of wrestling, and I'm still pretty green, so I feel like I can say this, it's tough to, get those opportunities. So when you do get them, you're going to do anything you can to keep them. It's just, opportunities are few and far between, even locally, People, don't think Colorado is necessarily one of the biggest markets for pro wrestling, but in the last 2 years, I've seen it double across the state. So, it's definitely a growing place. So, yes, even though there are more promotions going, that just means you have to fight twice as hard for these positions. I won the Colorado Springs Wrestling Championship, and even though it was for a minute, 30 seconds, now my name's on, the same plaque, with guys like Royce Isaacs, Marty the Moth, these guys. And, that didn't make my career any easier, especially earning that title that soon. If anything, I've had to work twice as hard to try and get opportunities elsewhere because, now there's that expectation, oh, you won that belt there, so, you better be a damn good wrestler if you come here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because it's something you put on your resume and then people expect more out of you.
Exactly. It made everything I've had to work for, now I have to work even harder to try and get those spots. And I wouldn't have it any other way because without that expectation, that would not make me as clean of a worker as, I'm trying to become.
Yes. And that's something I think a lot of people miss out on is you're always able to get your gimmick in there too, man. You're working on your wrestling, you got your mindset, but you're never forgetting that gimmick. And people, you've heard so many people talk about where they are in wrestling, but I've always heard that the reason Chris Jericho is one of the greatest is he never forgets his character.
And that is the other thing, too, you never stop paying your dues. People think, oh, I've worked hard for a year, now it's all going to cash out at this point. It's like, no. Whether you've been in the industry 1 year or 20 years, every person I know who's successful, who's been in the industry a long time knows that you never stop paying your dues. You always got to keep working hard. It never stops.
Well, people forget about you so fast these days. There's so much.
And the way I see it is if you're not trying to be the cleanest worker, if you're not trying to be the best at what you're trying to do, you're not going to make it very long. It's just the way it is. You either have that ambition or not. To drive, hours and hours across the state to state, across the country, like, it really has to be your calling in life. You could go to another state and, I'll use the stigma that's been passed around lately. A hot dog and a handshake might be all you get, but you got to take these risks to get it.
Yeah, well, you don't start with a big payoff, and you don't get out there and get paid your first. You don't make the most on a card your first night. The more you get your character out there, the more you're going to draw. The hot dog might turn into something much bigger one day.
Exactly. You gotta gamble. You gotta take those risks, and sometimes they pay off, sometimes they won't. But it's all part of the learning experience. But that's not just for wrestling. That goes for anything in life. You're never going to get anywhere if you just hide in your comfort zone.
And a lot of people now, especially with like Spirit Air having such cheap flights.
Oh, yeah.
They're able to get around the country, and with social media and all the other ways to get exposure, people are getting to see talent you would never got to see 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Most definitely.
I mean, I grew up before cable TV, and
Right.
I did not get to see but two promotions. I got the WB syndicated stuff, and I got Continental Championship Wrestling out of Birmingham. And
right.
that was in the days where the champion came in maybe once a year.
Exactly.
Ric Flair. So this whole thing, everybody's going nuts about the Brock Lesnar not working so much. Well, I didn't see the champion but once a year, maybe twice a year on the promotion I watched every day. It's just
it makes those matches mean that much more. It's like, hey, the champion only has to work 10 days a year, you know. If you get a chance to fight him, it means so much more. And I mean, I'm not saying that it means less to defend your title every night, because, you know, if you're defending something, you know, show after show after show, that means a lot too. But, you know, Brock Lesnar, he's accomplished everything, not just in UFC, not just in WWE, but all over the board when it comes to sports. So, you know, just the opportunity to get to work with a guy like him, you know, you got to make the most of it. Those 10 matches a year he works, you know, every one of those means something, you know.
Everybody watches him.
Most definitely.
He's on the biggest stage. They don't put him out on a show. And he got that. I mean, this guy's worked everywhere. Lesnar paid his dues. Lesnar worked in what is it? OVW.
OVW?
Yeah,
yep.
he did his business, and now he's the biggest name in the world. So he deserves that. Why have a championship? So it's one of my old jobs I had. The district managers all got company cars, but they all got crap company cars. You know, it wasn't anything, you know, I want to work for a place where the boss man drives a Cadillac or something. I don't want to work for a place where the boss man drives a Celica. That's
very true, yeah. If your boss is not driving something that looks very clean, then you're probably not going to want to, you know, fight for that position. Let's be real.
Yeah. Promoted if they're just going to give me a crappy car. And that's the thing with championships, man. Those guys, you gotta make it something people want to have.
Well, I mean, who was the last person who pinned Lesnar for a title? It was Eddie Guerrero, 13, 14 years ago?
Yes.
I mean, like, whoever does, you know, beat Brock Lesnar and earn that championship, you know, they are going to cement themselves, you know, along the same lines as Brock Lesnar and Eddie Guerrero. So that's saying a lot about, you know, who that wrestler will be, you know. Would I love for it to be Mopboy? Yeah, that would be excellent. Is that realistic? Probably not. But, hey, I'll keep fighting and trying to get that chance because, hey, the Mopboy wants to not only be the cleanest worker, the Mopboy wants to be the best in the world.
So where do you see yourself going, Mopboy? Where is your long-term goal in the wrestling business?
My long-term goal is to, you know, make this my career. You know, that's how, you know, I want to be. I don't want to just be, you know, mopping a, you know, high school gymnasium floor the rest of my life. I want to, you know, be as far as I go in this industry as I can. I want to make people happy. I want to wrestle in every state I can. You know, my goal is to try and be the best. You know, if I get into a company like Lucha Underground, New Japan, Impact Wrestling, WWE, or Ring of Honor, that would be awesome, you know. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But, you know, I'll be damned if I don't take a chance in trying to try, you know. Me, myself, I'm 25 years old. I've been doing this for 2 years now, you know. The way I see it is I do have a chance to try and do something for a long period of time, whether it's 10 or 15 years. So I'm going to keep trying to stay healthy, and I'm going to try and, you know, take it as far as I go. Do I know what the future has in store? No. But when those opportunities do arise, you know, I'm going to do my damnedest to take it and make it happen.
That's a great attitude, man. And you have a unique skill set that not everybody's getting. And I know I've went over this before, but with you out there promoting yourself on Twitch and the internet and Facebook and all that, you're getting skills that the WE type program is going to want. They're going to want somebody that knows how to talk. They're going to want somebody who can and carry a show on Twitch type things.
Most definitely, and you, as like a pure shoot, you know, like back when I was in high school and all that stuff, you know, yeah, I did wrestling, I played football a year in high school too, but, you know, I did, you know, 4 years of public speaking and theater throughout my high school career. When it comes down to it, you know, I've always been used to being in front of the crowd. You know, yes, you could be the best technical wrestler, you know, in the world, but if you don't have a character, if you don't have a personality that people can relate to, people aren't going to remember it. People think you got to do all of these crazy big high spots, these crazy wrestling matches, and then, you have a 20-minute match where you did all these crazy flips and stuff, and the fans will maybe remember 2 or 3 of the big moments that happened. So, when it comes down to everything mattering, you don't always, bigger is always better when you're doing that stuff. It's about telling the story through the whole match.
100%, man. I still remember Barb Armstrong and Ron Fuller doing stuff on Continental Wrestling when I was a kid, not because of the matches, because how they made me feel.
Oh, and most definitely.
Character. That's a big deal, man. Character to me is one of the biggest deals in wrestling because that makes people want to come back and watch your show.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, look at, the political state of our world right now, You can't just take things for face value because that's what's leading to, all the trouble we have, in our world, or why people who are part of the same country can't even get along. They just want to judge people for face value, Like me as a person, how I keep it clean, how I try to, have an excellent, shiny, reputation is that, I judge people by their character, not just being a character like someone in an acting, but, who they are as a person and what they are trying to prevail in their own lives. We're all fighting our own battle that we don't understand. And, there's just not enough objectivity in the world. You got people, and they fight for their side so hard. They root for politicians like, they're rooting for their favorite sports team. But they don't see the cons to their side, and they don't see the pros to their opposition. There are pros and cons to every end of an argument. And unless you understand the pros and cons to every end of an argument, you truly don't understand the situation. So you're fighting dirty, in my opinion.
There's been a lot of guys that I'll meet through wrestling and I think are great guys. And then later on Facebook or something, I'll find out they have completely different political opinions than me. And it's hard not to let that color me. But I try to judge them on the person that I met at a show, not the person I saw their, what I think would be offensive views on Facebook.
Right. And my view is, if I disagree with you on politics, that's not going to have me judge how I do it. The problem is that people, when they know they've lost the argument, they still try to win the fight by slandering. And, look at the philosopher Socrates, He said, once your opposition starts resorting to slandering, they've lost the debate. And that's the thing, people can't just have a civil conversation and talk it out, Hey, it's one thing, you cut a promo and then we fight and we try and beat each other in our match and try and prove who's number one. But, if you're just trying to talk about politics, it's about, politics are supposed to be nonviolent. And the fact that, people are being persecuted for nonviolently protesting, it's just crazy. I would much rather see somebody, take a knee and, be nonviolent than someone that, pulls out a gun to try and prove their point. That's not very clean in my opinion, and that's a huge issue nowadays. I'm not saying it's okay to, not be patriotic or that sort of thing, but, you got to show people respect, and if they're trying to prove a point and they're not using violence to prevail it, that makes their point more strong in my opinion.
I think a lot of people define patriotism differently.
That's true. Most definitely.
Define it as the right to protest something. Other people think it's the just to go along with what the country does. So people have so many different viewpoints now, and we don't have the ability to have civil discussions about stuff anymore. And that's a sad thing.
It is a sad thing, and it's just the way I see it is I like to keep my ego in the wrestling ring. But, the thing is, when you're trying to talk about these hard subjects, you got to put your ego aside. Our society has been trained. You don't talk about two things ever. You don't talk about religion, and you don't talk about politics. And look at where that kind of, that social norm has led society. Now people can't talk about these huge subjects without trying to fight over it. And if people could just talk and understand what their opposition is trying to say, even if you disagree with them, you could get a lot more common ground than just trying to talk crap and say, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. You gotta talk some of this stuff over. You gotta find something that you can have in common and some kind of ground. And I don't hate people that don't have the same views as I do, because that's not right. That's not how it should be done. But there are people that I don't understand. But if they're faceless, it's easier to dislike somebody. But when you make it somebody that you know and deal with on a daily basis, it's harder. It's harder to hate somebody.
Oh, most definitely.
And the internet's done that a little bit. It's given people friends that they'd never see or family members that they haven't seen in years. And now you can get angry at those people because you don't agree with them, want to argue with them. So
they really need to change the name of Facebook friends to Facebook acquaintances because, it's like, hey, someone will say they're your friend on Facebook and you'll never talk to them in person even if you see them. So that's, that's a whole skewed, viewpoint in the world. I don't think people know what an actual friend is anymore, But look at the day and age we live in, We have all these great tools for communication, but yet people don't know how to talk face-to-face anymore.
I've ran into that so many times in retail world where people will come up, especially younger kids, and they have no idea how to communicate. They can't come to a counter and tell me what they want or to inform me who they are. And my kids are doing it, my kids do that kind of stuff. It's like, get in there and talk, tell the person what you want, tell the person why you're here. And people aren't getting it these days. But
most definitely. I mean, kids need to go outside. As much as I love playing video games, you can't just sit there on the Fortnite all day. You can't just let your kids sit there, and play their Destiny or their Halo or their Call of Duty. And if they're not going outside, you got to be physical too. You can't always be caught up in the technical world because at the end of the day, it's all fake. Facebook, it's a thing. It's real because we all use it, but it's not real in the sense that it's not something you could physically, tangibly touch or be part of, It doesn't replace fresh air. Communicating on Facebook does not replace communicating face-to-face, There's no balance. You got to have balance,
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I've had a great time talking with you today, and you've got some...
Oh, it has been excellent, my friend.
Yes. It's probably the cleanest interview I've ever done.
I
Great...
appreciate it. Yes, no, I agree. It was clean as a bottle of Fabuloso, my friend. I had an awesome time.
Fabuloso. I love the smell of that. My girlfriend hates it.
Oh,
I love the smell of it. It's got
great stuff.
Clean smell. Well, where will you be bringing your one-man mopping show in the future?
Currently, right now, I am just working for Rocky Mountain Pro at the moment. But within the next year, I should be, starting to, open up and take new promotions. If you want to keep up on what Mopboy is doing, you can always find me on Facebook.com. Facebook.com/Mopboy, MOPBOY is the best way to keep up. You can also follow me on Instagram. My name's Scott Rubin. I actually use the username Dude I'm Scossum. DUDEIMSKASOME, like you took the word ska, like ska music and awesome, and you crunched them into one word. So, Dude, I'm Scossum on Instagram.
Awesome.
And then, of course, if you want to see RMP2K, you just got to go on twitch.tv/Rocky Mountain Pro, and you can watch me on there anytime, or on twitch.tv/Mopboy. Sometimes I do play some other games on my own time, not on the company's channel.
Well, if you ever get need somebody to play games with, let me know, man. I'd love to join you on there.
Most definitely. We'd love to have you on the show sometime, maybe even tomorrow night on Twitch. I'm on 10 to 12 p.m. Mountain Time.
Just remember
Sundays and Tuesdays.
Excellent. Well, look for him, folks. He's a great guy. Phenomenal conversation. Very interesting and a great wrestler. Mopboy out of Rocky Mountain Pro. He gave you their Twitch. You got to check this out. They're doing some special things with this. I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, and keep it clean.
Good mopping.
Yeah, don't get mopped.